The way Gojo got set up showed me a bunch of usefulness from the antagonist, main antagonist. Jogo have anxiety because he's like, man, 20 minutes, this is forever. I can't do nothing to this man. He's gonna kill me. Boom, sealed. Gojo, the most overpowered character and the strongest character in the series, is now sealed away into a Rubik's Cube. And you know what that means? It means that him not being here leaves room for all the other characters in the series to become more useful, right? Yes, 1000%. Gojo being swept up and locked away inside of Rubik's Cube is making the total cast of characters that much more useful, reliable, dependable, and gives them that much more longevity in the story to actually be useful. And in the same way that Gege hit the nail on the head with the usefulness of all the cast of characters, he did the same exact thing with the deconstruction of getting Gojo out the paint. In the matter that Gojo was sealed away and taken away from the story in this particular time did not compromise the theme of Gojo's character at all. And that's something I have a huge appreciation for. Because, you know, in retrospect, let's do a comparative thing like we do with JJK for some reason. Mariam and Netero. These two, I don't want to say overpowered characters, these two pivotal characters that mean so much to the story. The way they went at it and they got deconstructed was done so well. And it gave credence to just how strong Netero was. It did not take away anything from Netero at the fact that he didn't win that fight. And at the fact that Mariam almost lost that fight as well. It actually upped their character status so much more and just gave it so much more meaning to the story. And now let's look at Captain Numero Uno, Yamamoto from Bleach. You know, first he got absolutely just wiped up by Wonder Weiss with Aizen during that battle. And I'm just like, okay, you know, like you should have done something earlier. And now you can't even do anything because Wonder Weiss came in, took his flame powers, blah, blah, blah. We know how that goes. And now Yahweh came in the east side, northwest, whatever the fuck, got swept out the way too. And he ended up dying. And it took away from me what he meant to the narrative of the story of him being this pivotal character. More so for me, just, you know, didn't sit too well. And I'm not saying this is factual for everybody being objective. I'm saying subjectively, this is how I feel about this. Before Jujutsu Kaisen, this is how I always felt about this. So for this video series that I'm doing of Jujutsu Kaisen, carrying on themes and doing them in ways that I actually really love and enjoy, I'm going to talk about Gojo and how he was set up presently in the story and how he got taken away from the story in a way, again, that just adds to his character more than anything else at this point. I mean, look at all the things that have been going on lately. Just because he's not involved in the story at the moment, he's locked away in a Rubik's Cube. Everyone's going crazy, and I mean, taking full advantage of him not being around in the story. And it's like the same thing almost comparatively, not saying that it was copied, but like, well, look what happened to Netero when he was out of there. It was actually influenced into the story. The theme behind Gojo Satoru is that when he was born, basically an Amber Alert went out to the whole Jujutsu society and was like, hey, this guy that was born with the Limitless and Six Eyes technique that hasn't happened in like the last 100 years, he's here now. There's a kid with this right now. So he's going to be growing up to be a monster. So everyone should start getting their act together pretty soon. If you're going to go hit a lick, go hit it now before he hits the streets. And you ain't going to be able to do that no more. And that's exactly what happened as Gojo started to evolve into, you know, his later years. He ended up cleaning the streets in the sense that everyone heard about him and no one wanted to go out to disrupt any type of motion because they knew he would have went after them. Curses are just curses for the most part, and they didn't know any better, so they do the curse spirit thing, and he goes and exercises them. Cool. But for the sorcerers, yeah, not so much. And that theme behind Gojo, I just find to be narratively so cool because it just adds another layer of depth. I've been doing this all video long. You guys are gonna get real tired of this. I'm tired of this already, trust me. I've been doing this for my whole life. Adds depth to the story, to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, where just another layer. It doesn't have to be that thick of a layer to be discussed as much. It could be just small little plot points and, you know, little things that are pointed out here and there. Were just for these other sorcerers who just wanted to commit heinous crimes and just do their own thing, couldn't do it, and they just started to become very emotional about it. And once they heard that there was a scheme to get Gojo Satoru out the picture for a while, they were like, okay, we'll risk our lives for that. Or while some just stood back and say, you know, we'll see how that scheme works out for you guys, whether you die or not. And if it happens to work out, you know, we'll come out and finally be able to wag our tails in the streets because Satoru's not around. I feel like that just adds a dynamic role to the story that doesn't have to be opened up and, you know, have arcs about, but it would be cool just to have implemented into the story. It just builds up and opens the landscape of the world of Jujutsu Kaisen for me, which I always appreciate. So the narrative is set. The theme of Gojo being just this monolithic figure is set, right? Cool. All right. And we have a bunch of him in the story, and this is something I wish we had a little more of from other stories with figures of this magnitude. I love that we get so much Satoru Gojo leading up to his demise, him getting sealed away inside the Rubik's Cube. You know, for me, I just really always hated to have a character of this magnitude not really show up too often, and then finally when they get shown in the manga, it's just for them to be, you know, decomposed, deconstructed, to get out the story. Not my favorite thing to see, and honestly, any story, not just manga. I'm not comparing it just to everything else Jujutsu Kaisen gets compared to. I'm just saying what I like subjectively is not to see this character, these type of characters get played out so quick after being talked about so much in the story, after, you know, so much relevance of their power being this the strongest thing, or being something that all these villains are worried about, and being something that all the protagonists, you know, respect. And then once they pop up in the scene, they get just tossed to the wayside and like, oh yeah, get out of here now. So to have Gojo basically as another main character all the way up to this part of the story, we even get a wonderful backstory about him and Geto, because this shows so much of his personality and just him contrasting with his best friend and him contrasting with the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. For a few moments there, you look at Gojo and you're like, are you really sane? Like, are you just like trying to hold it together? Like, there's something deep and dark about you that I can't just put my finger on. And sometimes I wonder if there's gonna be a twist with him eventually, leading into his background, his backstory with Geto, and building that dynamic of him and Geto, those best friends dynamics there. So just to get that lead in also to see, wow, okay, he's the one that ended up killing Geto, you know, for the second time. After their second encounter from when Geto went rogue. I just love that dynamic that they both split and wanted to play different roles within the world. The one wanted to go one way and do something which the other one didn't agree with, but they're best friends, and you can tell they still love each other. It looks like it hurts that they're not still friends, or they can't. Well, they are still friends. It looks like it hurts that they can't still be together. That's what I read when I pick up this story. I really like that narrative. There's emotional strings being pulled between the main antagonist and the main, well, not main, but one of the co-main protagonists here. So leading into this scheme to imprison Gojo, coin the Shibuya incident, aka 10 out of 10, better known as this shit hits different. Hits different because, you know, traditionally we have this main master sensei character, almighty, everyone respects him, all the villains fear him, pop up on the scene, and then the villain that's been training for 1,000 years or who just came out the woodwork smacks him up, gets him out the paint, and then now we're led on a golden brick road of redemption for the main character to traverse and somehow equal the power level of the villain, that equal the power level of the master sensei guy to now beat him. And that's the story. Honestly, I really don't like it when it happens in stories, and sometimes when it happens, a lot of times when it happens, majority of the time when it happens, I gotta sit there and just be like, okay, I'm suck it up, you know. And I like things from the story. I'm just gonna let bygones be bygones and keep reading. It happens to me a lot with these stories that I read, and I'm happy it didn't happen here with Gojo. Instead, we have the antagonist set up a masterful plan, and look how deep this gets. All right, Gojo's best friend ended up being killed by Gojo. Okay, that weighed heavy on Gojo's soul, did it not? Of course it did. We already talked about there's obviously emotional ties here being pulled, and then to have this brain, this cursed spirit that takes the form of a brain, we take control and host Gojo's best friend's Geto's body, and now you have the dynamic of Gojo's best friend's body being taken over, but now also the brain knows everything about Gojo that Geto knew, emotionally, physically, technique-wise, everything Geto knew, this brain now knows. So on top of that, stacking on top of these dynamics here, we have this brain who has been planning for hundreds of years to implement this master plan of having cursed energy spread all throughout Japan and eventually all throughout the world. And now listen, I said hundreds of years. I feel like no one has said this yet. And I just want to say it. If someone has said it, hey man, cool, whatever. It just came in my head, light bulb went off, and I was like, wait, hold the fuck up. So this brain been around, come up with this plan for hundreds of years. Of course, he couldn't predict that Gojo was going to be born at this time, but he was definitely around for the last time that someone was born with the limitless and six eyes abilities all into one person. He has been around for this. And I was sitting down and I was like, wow, okay. So did they ever meet? Did they ever have any type of connections? Also, in the story, we were told, again, that 100 years ago, someone was born with both of these abilities, but we were not told if the person that was born with these abilities is as strong as her man, Satoru Gojo, if they can use it as good as Satoru Gojo. We don't know that. We don't know that yet. The brain will know that, possibly, probably, most likely, close to 99% on that he may know how strong that guy was. He definitely knows about him. And that intrigues the fuck out of me, to be honest with you, man. I wonder what he knows, honestly. The brain has been around and has been planning this since the last person with both Gojo's abilities were into one. And that brings up more of a stacking dynamic into how the plot went, because I'm pretty sure he was like, hey, man, in another 50, 60 years, this plan is going to be set. The brain, this is the brain thinking this plan, I'm going to go through with this plan. But whenever Gojo was born and that Amber Alert came through and the brain heard that Gojo was born with both these abilities, he was like, fuck me, man. How am I going to go through with my master plan? It's been a few hundred years. I'm ready to do it. I'm almost ready to do it. I want to do it. And now I got to think of another plan on top of my plan, original plan, to get rid of Gojo now because this guy's too, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now listen, that's called motherfucking bars.
It makes me wonder if maybe there was any assassination attempts on Gojo's life as he was a kid, when he was a kid, if that was, maybe the brain sent it to him. Maybe the brain set that up because he knew eventually Gojo was going to be a handful to deal with. Food for thought. Tell me not. The scheme of Shibuya, it's just so brilliant and beautiful, man. It's just, you have all the chaos going up and above. And again, the brain was inside Geto and he knew Gojo is in his element when he is alone. So they set it up for Gojo to be in his element, thinking like, okay, here's these cursed spirits in this cursed room trying to kill me again. They're going to use these civilians as a way to distract me and try to get to me. Oh, look, now they made these little simple domains around their fists that they can potentially try to hit me with. Cool, I'll deal with that as well, as I'm also dealing with the fact that we're fighting in a crowded area and I don't quite understand their plan here. But it's okay because we're rolling and I'm by myself, and by myself I'm in my zone. But they wanted him thinking and trying to solve these riddles and equations that were now popping up in front of him to exhaust him, get that cursed energy bar a little lower that level of stamina just down a bit, just a little bit, so that the brain inside of Geto could come over, throw the Rubik's Cube on the floor, surprise Gojo, and get him locked up and sealed away. I think that was beautiful. And then Gojo just being stunned that his best friend was still alive, and then him calling out the bullshit, and then the brain taking off the cap, his head, the skull, and just being like, hello, how you doing? I'm the brain. And Gojo saying some cool ass lines right before he gets sealed up. Again, never deconstructed the theme and made me feel like Gojo was any less of a character. It just built on top of it. And now that Shibuya is finished, it's concluded, it is done, we have all these new revelations hopping on top of it. The elders taking advantage that the person that they hated but also had to work alongside with is out the way. Now they're telling the sorcerer world that Gojo was a co-conspirator of this whole Shibuya incident, and it was his fault that all this shit happened, and he was a bad guy here, and anyone trying to save Gojo and get him unprisoned from the prison realm will be in prison and executed. The principal now being held up for execution as well for being another co-conspirator. That leading to Yuji now again being put up for execution after everything my man just went through, dealing with the depression that Sukuna is putting him through. And the main one after him right now, the first person they sent to him is Yuta, Gojo's other disciple. Come on. But this is also so cool that these are stacking on top of the theme that Gojo is not around, and the theme that Gojo held so many of these people down into the shadows when he was around, and to even lead into the Zenin family, and that Toji wrote in his will that if Gojo Satoru some way somehow dies or comes incapacitated mentally, that his son will now be the head of the Zenin family, that Megami is now going to be the head of the Zenin family. However that came about, that's brilliant. That is, it felt like he had that much respect for what Gojo stood for narratively in the story, to say like, hey, if this god ever gets killed, mentally incapacitated, my son Megami is now the head of the Zenin family. That adds to the Gojo hype for me. And what more can I say, man? That's how you deal with a badass character like Gojo. That's how you get him out the story, at the same time upping his hypeness, his coolness. The theme of everything he constructed within the story was never deconstructed, was never dismantled, was never spit on. It was actually just brought up even more. And I love how Gege did it. And that's how you should handle a character of this magnitude. I respect it. I love it, and I would love to keep talking about it. So if you guys want to have some conversations about this, hit me up down in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter. That's fine as well. I love to talk with you guys, get your thoughts on this. What do you think about how Gojo was swept up or locked away in that Rubik's Cube? Do you think it was done well? You know what I'm saying? Let's have a little talk about it. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the bell notification if you want to be rung up for more videos like this, guys. I'm so thankful, and girls, I'm so thankful for you guys checking out my video. Thank you very much. My name is Valentine. I'm getting out of here. You have a good night. Later.